I'm gonna give a big clap. That sinks everything. Though we could use an applause at some point. Right, take it away.
All right, well, welcome everybody to our first annual Olympia University TRT, HRT Performance and Supplement Roundtable. So this is, yes. Oh, well that doesn't work. Oh, that was so good too.
Hello,
that was a great start.
Just put it a little closer to your mouth.
Got it, okay.
Take two.
Take two.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right into it.
right, okay. Welcome everybody. This is our first annual Olympia University Hormone Replacement Performance and Supplement Roundtable. So I'm super excited to introduce our panel. Please, we want to ask lots of questions because that's kind of what guides this whole discussion. We have several hours to just pick these geniuses' brains. There is like more brains up here than, I'm actually absorbing it standing here, so it's kind of great for me. It's like osmosis learning. My name is Lacey Puttick. I am a dietitian by trade. So this is very interesting stuff as all of you, if you are practitioners going out into the world, working with people, this is a topic that's going to continue to grow. People are going to continue to go down the path of hormone replacement, of getting healthier, looking for disease prevention versus treatment. So I think we're getting a population that's more looking toward that. Plus, for those of you who work with athletes, more and more athletes are also going down the path of hormone replacement, as well as maybe in bodybuilding. We know that's kind of what's happening there. So we'll talk a little bit about all of that. So what I'd like to do is start with introductions, so you get to know everybody. We'll start down here on my right. Dr. Robert Zeek will give it started, and then we'll go down the line.
Okay, thanks, Lacey. So to the group, to those online, we're streaming this too, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
My name is Robert Zeek. I'm a PharmD. I own a compounding pharmacy, actually, in Las Vegas, Nevada, the venue of this location. I've been in the business for hormone therapy, age management medicine since 2005. I've done some courses and actually got a fellow in metabolic and nutritional medicine with A4M, the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, which is actually a large conference just held here at the Venetian the previous week. I work with a number of physicians in various states. My company's licensed in 48 states, and I've done some consulting for a few professional athletes who wanted to increase their performance. I've also done some consulting as a civilian for the U.S. Navy, for their special forces. So studying things that optimize performance, many different means beyond just nutrition and hormones. And I spend a lot of time responding to practitioner requests for what is desired now in the trends of hormone therapy. So I get to see a lot of this being licensed in so many states, and the rise of telemedicine providers that are in the business now of hormone replacement therapy is driving a lot of things. So I hope to talk about some of the trends, if I can answer some of those questions, and let's have a good afternoon.
Hi, I'm Dr. Elizabeth Yurth. I'm a physician in Boulder, Colorado. So my background, I kind of came into this world from a orthopedic standpoint. So I've been practicing orthopedics for about 30 years. Was in the sports medicine world for a long time. Had the opportunity to work with Stanford Athletics, the 49ers, San Francisco Ballet. And then sort of maybe 15, 18 years ago, started to get a little frustrated with the kind of recurrent injuries, and I just sort of patch people back together and then they fall apart and they come back. So it was that practicing where you're just sort of patching somebody together, and so I started looking at how can we actually optimize people so that they didn't just keep coming back into my office. And that took me to A4M, American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, where about 17 years ago I went back and got fellowship training in longevity regenerative medicine. So I've been kind of dual practicing orthopedics and regenerative functional longevity medicine, and sort of combining the two together. So we actually do a lot of regenerative orthopedics, but we also do a lot of health optimization work with a lot of high-level athletes. A few years ago, got more interested into the cellular medicine side, and I started getting into more peptides. And now I've had the opportunity to learn with some of the greats in peptides, William Seeds, and I'm on faculty for Seeds Scientific Research and Performance, where we teach a lot of peptide optimization, peptide therapies, and what we call cellular medicine. So we've taken it from the more functional medicine approach, which is organ system based, to what does the cell do? So now we're looking at cellular pathways and how all of these things that we all do affect the cell, and how you can actually optimize things at a cellular level for both treating all of us so we don't age, because aging is really a disease, and optimizing our athletes, and really making people heal and get well.
Okay, I'm Mike Kosis. I'm from the UK. Actually, I was a long time ago born in the US, but I've got a US passport, Italian passport, and a British passport. I'm the founder of Balance My Hormones, and the reason why I mention it is because I started what I like to call American-style TRT, but with British sensibilities in the UK nearly 7 years ago. There was a big lack of attention to men's health and women's health when it comes to hormones. And with TRT, or in the UK's landscape, we've really changed it. We were the first, I was the first to set this up in this way. There was maybe 1 or 2 small doctors doing TRT at the time for men, so kind of paving the way in the UK and in Europe. I also own a pharmacy called The Hormonist. I just started that about 1.5 years ago to be able to consolidate and be able to offer our patients just a bit better service since we had control of the pharmacy. I've also been on TRT for over 26 years, and I have a YouTube channel called Balance My Hormones, where we try to educate men and women about TRT, HRT, hormone optimization. I think we even did our most popular video, I think, was No Fat November. Seems to be a big popular topic. But we have more high-level conversations, and sometimes the high-level conversations don't always bring in the views, but I think that's just the state of the world today. But no, happy to be here and offer some of my experiences. I also was a case manager or a TRT coach with the patients. I still do it from time to time. So I hear like some of the clinicians firsthand, what the patients are thinking, male or female, on their HRT and TRT.
All right, does it work?
Yes.
So I'm George Touliados. I'm a biopathologist MD from Greece. I am a medical associate of muscular development columnist also. Associate of the Anabolics book, Adult Condition, and I work also for Balance My Hormones UK. I'm an author of 4 books in English, 4 books in Greek, and 1 in Italian. And this is my first Olympia University. I've been also hosted twice in the Arnold Educational. So my specialty is the replacement therapy in men, as my background is from bodybuilding. I was a bodybuilder myself, and I won 2 national titles. And also the harm reduction in PEDs in sports.
Hi, I'm Nathan Payton. Probably most well known as far as working with the world's strongest man athletes around the world. I've won 7 world's strongest man titles with my clients, 4 with Brian Shaw, 2 with Tom Stoltman, and 1 with Martins Licis. Besides the strength athletes, I've worked with other numerous athletes around the world, Saquon Barkley from the New York Giants, even musicians or strange things that kind of beat off the path, like Bill Aucoin, who was the manager for the band Kiss. So if you name it, it's kind of all over the gamut as far as actors, actresses, and different people that I've worked with. Probably the thing I'm most well known for, in addition to that strength aspect, is I worked with different physicians around the world that will refer diabetic clients to me that they just can't seem to get right or solve or under control. So insulin is kind of my realm, and I apply that with my strength athletes. But as far as also working with regular individuals who are trying to dramatically improve their health, especially those types of diabetics.
Okay, and my name is Rick Collins. I'm an attorney. I've done the Arnold education track before. This is exciting to be here in Las Vegas doing the Olympia education. Like Dr. Touliados, I come from the world of bodybuilding, so I was a competitive bodybuilder. That was my background. I was a criminal prosecutor as an attorney when I first started in my practice. Over the years, my practice has kind of morphed into wherever health and fitness intersect with legal issues is kind of what I do. So I've represented probably more athletes, bodybuilders on all sorts of legal issues, including criminal issues. I've represented many doctors in medical licensing issues and other matters involving professional practice. A lot of my clients are on TRT, either legally on TRT or on black market anabolic steroids. I've probably had more matters involving anabolic steroids and testosterone than anybody. I was part of the United States Sentencing Commission's working group when sentencing for anabolic steroids was changed in 2006. I'm also a columnist for Muscular Development Magazine. I've been writing for MD for over 20 years. I've written probably the only book, Legal Muscle, that covers steroids and testosterone in law, medicine, politics, sports, entertainment, you name it. That was also about 20 years ago. So my whole practice is within this area, and I'm excited about giving at least some legal perspectives to some of the issues that we're going to talk about today.
Awesome. Thank you guys for your introductions. I think probably what I would like to start with, and I think this will kind of start the conversation, is a couple of you guys mentioned kind of the trends, like what's going on right now. From my perspective in nutrition, I think there's a big, huge trend. People are looking more toward, wow, food really can help me as a human feel better and do better. We're looking differently at, not old world food guide pyramid nonsense. We're really kind of forward thinking in that way, a few of us are anyways, kind of looking at different ways of eating that actually people are feeling better, doing better. We're not so afraid of protein anymore and that kind of stuff. So I think there's a lot of that type of trend going on where people are going, wait a second, we really need to rethink the way we thought about food for a long time. So that's kind of what I'm seeing in my world. I'm also looking a lot into how food affects hormones, how it affects optimization, how it affects people on TRT, because there's definitely considerations with multivitamins, with micronutrients, magnesium, zinc, all those types of vitamins and minerals that need to be also considered when somebody is taking those types of medications or looking to optimize their health and performance. So those are kind of the trends that I see. I'd like to, as each one of your different perspectives, whether it be pharmacy, practice, coaching, legal, what are those trends? So we can start same way, just go down the line. Tell us about the trends you're seeing either legally or in that field, in this field of TRT hormones and use of them. So go ahead.
Let me start?
Yeah.
Well, if we're going to talk specifically about the food and the nutrient trends, know that I spend a lot of time in my practice designing protocols. There are a number of physicians that are just barely getting trained in hormone replacement therapy. So having done the whole A4M conference and the fellowship program, I see a lot of labs. And what are my most common recommendations? These would be for hormone therapy patients. And one of the things to note, particularly in athletes, is when you break down the simplicity, especially what I recommend as far as nutrition. Food first is my motto. We can always go to a supplement later. Americans are so hopelessly deficient in so many nutrients, which you can measure. There's a number of different labs to do that. But when it comes to testosterone, it's not uncommon for me to see high-performance athletes. Overtraining syndrome is a real thing, and every time you sweat, that body is losing its key minerals, zinc and magnesium in particular, which neither the male or the female body can produce testosterone without. Zinc and magnesium are crucial for testosterone synthesis. And the most dense concentration of zinc, incidentally, in the male body is the prostate. It's prostate protective, and zinc also has a property where it naturally inhibits the conversion of testosterone to estradiol. So the ratios are really important. My motto is food first. The most dense concentration of magnesium in any food substance is organic roasted pumpkin seeds, 500 milligrams per 4 ounces. And if you have a 200-pound, highly trained male with a lot of muscle, that's a person who needs an intake of 1,000 milligrams of magnesium per day. An absorbable form, like the chelates are popular now. Most people that are in the know about nutrition are not using magnesium oxide. They're not using magnesium citrate unless they want to sit on the toilet for a good part of their day. They're using the magnesium chelates. But the more you train, the more nutrients you deplete. So I like to recommend foods first so that we can reserve the supplement expenditure, because you can really spend a lot of money on all the nutrients that we need. And zinc, there's some zinc in the organic roasted pumpkin seeds too. Oysters, maybe their natural aphrodisiac effect is due to their zinc, because the zinc can raise testosterone. So one of the things that I'd like to see a little bit more of, especially when I look at labs, so one of the things that I look for clinically, the total testosterone to estradiol ratio. And I like to see that, where people are optimal, really a 50-to-1 ratio. So think in a young male, testosterone level of 1,000 and estradiol level of 20. And if I see somebody who is sweating a lot, in particular the overtrained hyperendurance athletes, okay, they're nutrient depleted in just about everything. And then look later in life, as I was having a discussion before this roundtable began, as a pharmacist, look at the drugs that are responsible for nutrient depletion. So where I begin to train other pharmacists on how do you make people healthier that haven't yet enrolled in any of the courses, get a handbook called Drug-Induced Nutrient Depletions. And every guy that's on a drug that makes you pee, all your diuretics, you're peeing out your zinc and magnesium. And that's where in life we think of the average age of a male that goes on testosterone therapy. I have seen the loss of those minerals that are rarely measured on labs. The loss of those minerals lead to a shift of that ratio of total testosterone to estradiol. You'll see testosterone fall, estradiol raise, and sometimes the first intervention is not necessarily a prescription drug, which, believe me, I sell plenty of. There's lots of utilization, but to tune in on the nutrition, like you said, Lacey, I like to tell people, look at some of the top foods that are dense in magnesium and zinc, and I could talk for hours, but if I were to pick two, I would just focus on that. The food first model, and then we can pick up later, we're talking about longevity because it's a whole another portion of the round panel. We'll talk about senescent cells and potentially fasting mimicking, but I'll stop there with those two nutrients.
Oh gosh, you covered a lot there. So, Lacey, you talked about kind of nutrition first, and I think, to your point, I think yes, you can get a lot from diet. I think, unfortunately, food is not very nutritious anymore. I mean, unless you can truly grow your own food in an organic garden that you rotated soil in, most of our food is nutrient depleted. So I don't know that you can get by without supplementation, even if you're eating the perfect diet and all the pumpkin seeds of the world. I think, unfortunately, still most people need nutrients and they need supplementation. So I think, yes, diet, you have to get everybody, pursuing the diet, you've got to get their macronutrients and micronutrient profiles. We do run micronutrient testing at our Clinic Boulder Longevity Institute. We run a big micronutrient panel on everybody. We know what they're deficient in, we know what we need to replace, and most people are quite deficient in a lot of different things. So I think that it's pretty hard to get by with saying you can get by just with eating food. I think probably most of us need supplementation. Magnesium, vitamin D's. I think that there's very few people who can get by without that. So, and again, I'd like to say we could get it all from food. I think in a different world we might be able to. At this point where we have a government who's pushing us not even to, we're going to have fake meat and, and we don't really even know what's in our food and the amount of chemicals that are in our food. Unfortunately, that's, it's a pipe dream. Probably you guys have a little bit better in Europe because you have a lot more ban on pesticides and things that we utilize.
There's a ban on glyphosate.
Right.
And genetically modified foods to a certain degree. So we don't know which way it's going to go with the UK leaving the European Union, if they'll change some of the laws that were protected under the EU. But what we do at Balance My Hormones, like probably other clinics here, we test a couple of basic vitamin panels, the vitamin D3, we'll also test B12 and folate, or folic acid, and iron of course too. So it's it's a starting point, and we've seen a lot of deficiencies in vitamin D3, especially being in Northern Europe.
Also. Right.
Yeah. And even Greece, surprisingly, with the sun. So.
Well, most people are vitamin D deficient, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we tell all of our patients they need vitamin D. I don't think there's anybody who doesn't.
So, and then we find the combination of vitamin D3 with magnesium and K2. Thanks. That seems to help quite a bit.
I think that magnesium is not 98% is out of the cell. So it's not so accurate to measure it in the serum, right?
Right, you have to
Is it
measure red blood cell magnesium, right?
Right, you have to do RBC magnesium.
Magnesium, right, red blood cell. And actually, we do, even in micronutrient panels, if you look at B12 levels in the serum, if somebody's taking B12, it's going to be high in the serum. Whether that's intracellularly high is not, so you either have to measure a metabolite of B12 called methylmalonic acid, or you have to measure intracellular B12 level. So even when you're getting a serum B12 level, it's really not being all that accurate for you.
And we could order any and all the tests. It's just there's just a very basic panel that we start with as a starting point. So.
Yeah.
But as to the diet, you're right. The foods are depleted. As a starting point, the right calories. I guess to the point that if you're having the right nutrients and right caloric intake, you're going to feel a bit better, and you can't just expect to have the TRT or HRT do its work on its own. I said in an interview yesterday with Monica Brandt, I've always said this, testosterone and donuts don't mix. Anyway, I'll let George take it away.
Yeah, so we're filming with Michael a video 2 days ago here in Las Vegas about what food should you avoid in order to prevent the decline of the testosterone. So soy, of course, is an estrogen. Ethanol that aromatizes also is in the liver is prohibited. And I believe also trans fat is inflammatory, that it has to be kept away from the diet. Now, we need to eat organic today. Why? Because organic food today equals the food that our grandfathers were eating. So we need to buy quality food, otherwise, I believe literally it's empty of nutrients, today's nutrition, what the population is eating. And this is one of the reasons malnutrition also is why this generation has lower testosterone than our fathers and our fathers or our grandfathers, and it goes on like this. Absolutely, testosterone is not the wonder drug that's gonna make you feel and look great if there's no the building blocks. That means the nutrients are not optimized and in a plethora of variety. So yes, I believe that drugs do not work by themselves. Also, we need supplementation, and we need also proper diet.
And kind of packaging all that together would be insulin and insulin sensitivity. And as your degree of insulin sensitivity increases, your ability to receive nutrients also increases with that. You know, that's kind of like with the seminar that I did yesterday, you can have 10 different diets, all have a sound approach within reason. You know, take your consistency of which you approach that, of course, and apply that across the board. But at the end of the day, your results ultimately that you will receive out of any chosen diet that you pursue is going to be based off of how you respond from an insulin standpoint, both in release as well as insulin sensitivity. So consider insulin is the key. Insulin sensitivity or insulin receptors, basically that's the doorway. You need the insulin to unlock that doorway to get the nutrients into the cells to have that desired result for your nutritional program, your athletic program, or your overall health program. One of the things trend-wise that comes to me often when it comes to the diabetic referrals from around the world in the different countries that I see, 99% of the time, the emphasis is to feed the drugs, not feed the person. And that's where things are basically just completely backwards from a diabetic standpoint. The more insulin sensitizing drugs that you throw at a diabetic, the more you will have to create a reliance upon that, because unfortunately higher levels of circulating insulin, the catch-22 is on the backside you're going to have increased levels of insulin resistance because of that constant exposure. Whereas if you instead approach it from treating and feeding the person and then compensating with the drugs and the nutrition protocol to what the person can't handle, that top end, that's where you get far greater control, far greater health and quality of life for those diabetics or really anybody, athletes that choose to perform that type of a pursuit.
So I'm going to take this a little broader, and when we think about trends and I think about testosterone, so certainly TRT is becoming much more popular for so many men in the UK, in the United States. The science certainly supports it, but at the same time, there's this sort of counter push, both medically and culturally, against testosterone. And when I think of trends, I think of just recently James Cameron, the director of so many high testosterone fueled movies, some of my favorite movies, including the Terminator series, has disavowed testosterone and has come out with a very widely circulated on social media statement blaming all of his bad conduct in past years on testosterone. And he says physically, he's referring to actual testosterone, but also metaphorically, that this idea of testosterone in youth, it's bad, we need to get away from testosterone, which is so, certainly the science would show how insane that position is. But there is this sort of trend in society, this sort of anti-testosterone, maybe even anti-masculinity sort of approach that has become much more pervasive, even though it's certainly not supported by science. But you do see this also reflected in the science, because just in what was it, 2014, the Food and Drug Administration came out with a statement saying that testosterone, put a black box warning on testosterone products in the United States, saying that it presents risks of heart attack and stroke. And I'm not a doctor, but I've read the science and I'm familiar with the studies that it was based on, and I was not impressed that it was really supported for the vast majority of men, or that it was really a correct characterization. So maybe this is leading into the next question of sort of this pushback against testosterone, certainly for cardiac reasons, and maybe some of the panelists can talk about men or their families who are concerned about TRT affecting negatively their hearts, and a little bit more about how actually low testosterone is far more dangerous for men than TRT or testosterone, or high normal ranges of testosterone.
I think that'd be a great question. Go ahead, start down at the end. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
Rick, I got a couple of things I want to talk about. I apologize if I'm going to take too much time. I want to clarify one remark I had on nutrients. And, what Dr. Yurth said is right. It's impossible to get the nutrients that we need from food, but it's also impossible for most people to afford to buy the supplements that they need. When I mentioned you need 1,000 milligrams of magnesium per day, I have a double chelate capsule that I...
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Oh, why is that one so loud?
I think, yeah, we have another hour, so we're good. I think if it was only 2 hours and a half, we're good. Oh, we used one half of 2 hours, and we have 1 hour left, so we're good.
Who's on the end? Rick, can you say something? Sound check?
Hey, sound check,
Yeah, that's
testing
good.
1, 2, 3.
Okay, great. All right, I'm going to record. Everything else is recording. All right, that's soul sync then.
All right, everybody, welcome back to our TRT, HRT supplement nutrition panel that we have here at Olympia University. So we just had a little bit of an intermission and a few cool questions came up. So kind of give you a little preview of what we're gonna touch on. So I'm gonna first have Rick Collins here speak about the future of testosterone, kind of where he sees this going legally. He's already talked about why it's a Schedule 3, but where that future may be going and why. I also want to ask George, specifically Dr. Tuliatos, about his experience with anabolic abuse. So we're all talking about use, we're all gung-ho on all of it, but kind of give that other side perspective that he definitely has a very good perspective on that. And then for the rest of our panel, I definitely want to talk about, I had a couple of questions about the estrogenic compounds in our environment and how you feel they're affecting the population as a whole, where the big ones are, what those are coming from, and really how they're affecting the health in general and where you see that taking this. So we'll see how far we get into all of that. So I'm going to go pass it on to Rick first so he can talk about where he sees the future of testosterone going.
So thank you, Lacey. So for many years, I've had physicians ask me, Rick, why Schedule 3? Is there ever going to come a time where there'll be less of a restriction, these DEA, these restrictions and regulations that DEA imposes on us? Is there any chance that we'll ever get non-controlled status or reduced status? And of course, many of my clients in the bodybuilding community have been asking me for many, many years, Rick, why are we labeled as in the same category with heroin users and cocaine users and meth users? I'm just using testosterone. Why, is there any chance? And I've always said I don't see, certainly the bodybuilding community doesn't have the cloud of credibility as a society to ever make those kind of changes, I don't think. And I would have said probably I don't really see a change in status coming until fairly recently. And a glimmer of hope appeared a couple of years ago that I wound up writing a column in Muscular Development about, and I've been speaking about it. Didn't really see it coming, and it's an alliance that a new ally that 10 years ago I never would have thought would have been there. And so it started when I read an article in a periodical written by a person who was assigned female at birth and was seeking not to become a man, but to be more masculine along a gender spectrum. And the article was fascinating because this person was extolling the virtues of testosterone and this radical change that it made in this person's life, because this person wanted to be not a man, but to have broader shoulders and to be more generally muscular, leaner. I remember specifically a wider jaw, some beard growth, and testosterone. A doctor prescribed testosterone, and the writer was lamenting that the restrictions on testosterone were